welcome to Hand Rolled Real Estate. I'm Robbie. I'm here with Jay, and we're very passionate about cigars and real estate. And today, we're going to talk about the the wage versus rent, and how it's affecting the country on average, and then how it may be affecting certain areas differently.
Hey everyone, I'm Junaid Noor. Thank you, Robbie. And thank you for this wonderful cigar. I'm smoking a God of Fire Series B 2020.
I've got a Perdomo Nicaraguan Lot 23, Connecticut wrapper, pretty light, but a really nice, easy draw. It's an easy smoke.
So let's get into our topic, Robbie. So, I was looking at some information and there was an article that I was reading which I thought our readers would be interested in. It would be a good discussion. The continuing growing gap between wages and rents. We were there, and they were citing sources from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Zillow, and Street Easy data. And so what they did was they basically put together a table of the differences between, or the gaps between wage growth and rent growth in different cities.
Where were some of the biggest differences? I know that, like, on average, they both had increases. The wages went up, but unfortunately, rents went up as well. But there were some cities that had sizable gaps.
So here's the issue. If you look at the average in the US, wages were up 4.3% and rents were up 3.4%. And I think that a lot of people who listen to these numbers or you read about this in, on your news feed, uh, most people look at this and go, oh, well, wages were up 4% and rents are up 3%. That's not too bad. But remember, we keep stressing the fact that real estate is very, very local. And, you know, yes, the US average, a statistical number, is up 4.3% for wages and 3.4% for rents. But in different areas, they had different growth rates and different increases. Like, for example, New York had a 1.2% wage growth and 8.6% rent growth.
Yeah, that's really going to hurt you. With what you can get, what you can rent. It's already difficult to buy new with the interest rates, and now with that kind of difference between wage and rent, it's going to start impacting your quality of life.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the other cities that they cited in this chart, Chicago had a negative wage growth, but 5.4% increase in rents. So, on the one hand, we're hearing these numbers about, oh, wages are going up, but wages are going up very locally. Rents are going up much more very locally. And, inflation, is still there. It's not really under control. And, some of the reasons that rents are going up are, insurance is one of the big reasons.
Yeah, I was about to say that obviously two sides to the story. You have the consumer and their constraint with inflation and high interest rates, and the flip side of that is the real estate investors, the landlords, and they're getting real increases in cost, and so some of these increases in rent are probably just getting caught up with shortfalls for insurance and shortfalls for restructuring their loans. And so I think this is something we're going to continue to see.
And the other thing that people need to understand is that when your wages are going up by 4%, so are everybody else's. So the utility companies need to increase their what they charge the consumer because they have to pay higher wages. Um, the trash collectors, the maintenance guys, everybody's wages are going to go up. As everybody's wages go up, everyone has to charge more in order to maintain the same margins. Um, and then the other issue is property taxes, right? As in an inflationary environment, hard assets increase in value. Um, and when you're in a state like Texas, or in Harris County, and actually most of Texas does the same thing, which they charge you property taxes based on the unrealized gains on your property. So you haven't sold your property yet, but the value is increased and they want to charge property taxes on the increased value. Well, if that value goes up, rents have to go up because property taxes have gone up.
Right. A lot of it's just the owners of these properties passing along, real expenses, and you know, unfortunately, in some cases, it's outpacing, the amount that their wages are increasing.
The other issue is interest rates, because interest rates have gone up. And again, interest rates have gone up to try to control inflation. But the problem is that when you have rental properties where your interest rate is not fixed, it's usually just fixed for 4 or 5 years, and then it resets. And if you're in that reset period right now and your interest rate just went up from 4% to 8%, well, that has to be reflected in the rents because most property investors have margins that they need to make. When you have a big multifamily property, you're going to have investors that you need to answer to, and you need to maintain returns for them as well. So rents have to go up because everything, all the other prices, all the other main core items in an apartment complex are increasing in value.
Well, and the same kind of applies to new developments. You get these guys that are already slowed down. You have a pent up demand. Interest rates killed so many of these deals, and now they've got to figure out, how do I continue to make these new development deals? And I think a lot of the cases, the product is going to be reduced in quality. Some of the higher end scales are going to disappear. Some of the amenities are going to shrink, and that's what it's going to take from the new developers to offset these increases in rent.
And also, the returns that the investors will be getting will be a little bit lower too. Again, cost of capital is higher. Investors were used to 17 and 18% returns on value adds. I'm seeing 12 and 13% returns on value adds on, let's say, an amazing deal where, they're getting distressed property, they're getting it way below market value, and or they're getting some kind of relief from property taxes, uh, or they're getting some kind of relief from providing a certain amount of low income housing. Other than that, you're not going to see those higher returns for investors, for limited partners anytime soon, maybe over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, some of the deals that you and I've been getting, definitely the IRRs are less, and as a matter of fact, you're starting to see AAR in lieu of IRR, which is annualized return, and you have to be careful there because it's a higher return, at least from a percentage standpoint.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and most people don't really, uh, they don't understand it. They probably don't even care too much about it. But AAR is just the average annual return. IRR takes into account the time value of money. So IRR will always be lower. If a investment is being carried on for 4 or 5 years, the AAR, the average annual return, will be higher. When you start discounting the returns for the time value of money for each year coming back, it'll be a little bit lower. So yes, IRRs are going to be lower. AARs will probably stay the same. Um, but yeah, when you're a limited partner and you're looking at some property to invest in, you should understand the difference between AAR and IRR. And not to say that real estate is not a good deal still. Real estate is a good deal. Over the next few years, interest rates will stabilize. Actually, probably this year, I think nobody's expecting any increases in interest rates. So interest rates will start stabilizing. Property values will start increasing some more. As far as sales volumes, and with the increase in rents, those will stabilize as well, and everything will start kind of going from this level up to now it's stable at this level. So it'll all come back, but it's going to take a little bit of time.
Well, with the shortage in the housing market and the rising rent rates, how is the average family going to deal with it? What do you think? At some point the wages are going to start slowing down, but I don't foresee the rent uh, gap getting better. I actually see it getting worse. I think that a lot of these costs, I think some people are still even battling from, what we dealt with 2 and 3 years ago. I think some of these landlords are still trying to recoup some of the money they lost. What do you think the family does to offset some of these things?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. And I don't know if there are any long-term studies or any studies done on what the patterns are of people. What are they doing? Even with wages going up and then rents going up much more, and then of course, there's in certain cities there's still a shortage of housing supply, so they can't afford to buy houses because of interest rates being high and property values being high because of the shortage. Uh, if they can't afford to rent, uh, uh, the new construction homes, because those are going to be very expensive, Class A. So I guess people start moving down to Class B and Class C properties, but those are all full too, and you can't make new Class C properties. Everything that you make is either an A or an A minus, new construction. So those older properties that are B and C, um, those are all occupied 95% as well. So I'm not sure. I think what's going to happen is that maybe two families with one kid each, instead of getting a one-bedroom apartment, get a two-bedroom apartment and share it. Or the other one is, the BTR communities, the houses for rent are very, very popular because it's cheaper to move a large family into a rental house than getting two apartments.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some. I think you're going to see some of the children staying home longer, and or even coming back and moving back in with their parents. You might even start to see some people having to dig into their savings to offset the difference to maintain their lifestyle. But I think for sure, that this is going to be a continuing problem until we start getting relief from the Federal Reserve and they start lowering the interest rates. I think that's going to be the key to turning the tide.
Here's another interesting chart that I was just looking at. It is the greatest gaps between wage growth and rent growth since pre-pandemic. So the first chart we talked about was 2022, 2023. This is from pre-pandemic, and if I'm looking at this chart, I'm looking at Hartford, Connecticut. Increase in wages from 2019 to 2023 is 7.6%, but increase in rents for that same period is 35%.
Oh wow! I mean that's a huge gap. I don't even know how you explain that.
The number one area is Tampa, Florida. Wage increase is 15.3%, but rent increase is 50%.
Oh my goodness! I don't know how you could pull that off.
No, no. And again, um, families are going to be struggling even with the increased wages because of the inflationary environment and everything else, right? Food is more expensive, and I go to a grocery store and you can see the gas prices are up, and um, clothing, everything has gone up. We go to restaurants and salads that were $10 are now $15.
Yeah, no, I mean, food is definitely is crazy, and I'm not familiar with the Tampa market, but here in Houston, it was historically behind the rest of the country in home values, and man, over the last few years have we caught up, and it kind of goes with the whole, this is a global market now, and I think some of the cities that historically were less and had more affordable housing are definitely catching up to the ones that are the New Yorks and the LAs and the Chicagos, and I think that's some of the stuff that's trending and causing some upheaval in the market.
And then jobs, right? Texas still has a lot of jobs. Texas is picking up a lot of corporations moving out of California. Tesla's here, HP has moved here, Apple's got a campus here, Samsung is building a huge semiconductor factory up in Sherman, Texas. Um, well, those corporations that move in bring in jobs, and jobs bring in people. And when Samsung puts a semiconductor facility, they're not going to only hire local people. They're going to move people from California, from New York, from other places, who are going to be selling their $1 million 1,000 square foot homes and coming in here and saying, hey, Oh, this is a 5,000 square foot home for 350. Well, I'm going to pay full. No, 500,000. I'm going to pay full price because wow, this is a deal for me. Well, it's a deal for them, but the local people can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah, I mean that exact situation happened in Austin, right? I mean, Austin is the Texas's version of California, and there's a lot of California transplants there that have really brought up the pricing in the residential market.
And something like this happened back in the 90s too, actually. Not the early 90s, in the late 90s during the internet boom in Silicon Valley. Uh, San Jose area, all these tech entrepreneurs and all these engineers, tech people were moving in, paying crazy prices for housing. I know a friend of mine moved from Chicago. He was a tech engineer. He was a tech guy. He was an engineer, and he was happy to move to San Jose. He was getting a $50,000 salary increase, but when he got there, he found that the only thing they could find or they can afford was a trailer home for $450,000, and this is when houses were $200,000. And one of the issues that started happening was that public service employees, teachers, firefighters, policemen, could no longer who were working in San Jose could no longer afford to live in San Jose, and they had to move outside just because their salaries are not covering, are not able to put up, keep up with the rental prices.
Yeah, no, it's definitely some uncertain stuff going on in the market, and I think that hopefully the wages continue to increase, and the rent stabilizes, and maybe the interest rate drops, and the sun, the moon, and the stars will align, and it'll all be a sunny day again.
Yeah, I hope so too. The, the economy is still growing, and it's growing at a good pace, and that's probably one of the reasons that wages are growing. But to try to keep inflation in check, and again, I think that we did a previous episode on this. I think it's unrealistic for the Fed to try to maintain a 2% inflation rate when it hasn't happened in 46 years. From my own research, in 46 years, they were able to bring the inflation rate under 2% only three times. And so, the average inflation rate since 1915, since uh, uh, the Fed has been watching inflation and interest rates, um, the lowest, the average in 50 years has been 3.5% or 3.2%. It's in one of the previous episodes. So I think 2% is kind of untenable.
Yeah, it might be a little aggressive, and it actually might, you know, I don't want to say it's unachievable, but it is probably something that might be starting to drag the economy down.
And that's what normally happens, right? In previous recessions, you'll see that the Fed raised the interest rate so fast, so high, and left it there for so long that eventually wages started stabilizing, and then they started um, unemployment started going up. So people start getting laid off, and if they don't have the money, they don't spend the money, and therefore inflation starts going down.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. I hope y'all maybe put some thought into, you know, your own local area and what your wages look like and what your rent increases look like, and grab a Perdomo Nicaragua Lot 23. Maybe pair it with a light meal, maybe a chicken or a fish, and enjoy.
Or you can have a nice steak or a big juicy burger and go with this God of Fire Series B 2020. Nice strong cigar. Um, I would not recommend it after a salad, though.
That was a very strong cigar. Well, we hope to see you guys soon. Hit us up on all our social medias and leave any questions or comments for us.
Have a good day.